to do it. You should just know you have it and it is superior. And that's what I'm telling you. Gen Z told us that in very unclear terms. I even said earlier, they don't have to send you notification. Because why should the owner of your house of the house tell you? Even Jesus in the story of the brides, he will come at an hour that the brides do not know. So just be ready. So if you're a head of state, be ready. We will come at an hour that you do not know. We won't specify that to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Well, yeah.
Thank you very much, Eric. Mine is not about the law. I'm not a lawyer, and there are better lawyer. There are people who are very good in law who are in the room. Guys like Migaya Kech, my very good friend and classmate and deskmate and housemate. We have, of course, Professor Kivuda Kibwana. I can see also people like Harvey. Mine is just about this whole thing and how, Gen Z are handling it. Look, I think this requires a lot of patience. And as a father of a Gen Z, I don't think that is something Gen Zs are very maybe good at. What is going to happen is these things are not done in a very fast manner the way everybody thinks they would happen. We're in Kenya, we live in Kenya, we grew up in Kenya, we know what happens. My fear is that there is going to be a lost opportunity if people go about it the wrong way. Why am I saying this? I think the best way to bring about change is through the ballot. And if Gen Zs want to bring change in this country, they have to start organizing themselves. They have to put the infrastructure in place. They have to form, movements. They have to register. They have to mobilize. They have to give people IDs. They have to exert all this energy in that direction. We've got only 3 years or even less left to the ballot. There are institutions that basically are very vital in elections, like IEBC. They have to be involved. They have to, yes, like the issue of finance bill. I said, I remember, I don't know if you remember my tweet, Eric, and everyone else, in 2023, I said this thing is sumu. It's going to haunt this administration. And that was because of the housing levy and other things. And I mean, eventually, it was 1 year late, but it came to pass. Now, saying when you go to things like finance bill, you have the right, and it's something that affects you immediately. So I actually supported the finance bill and basically the protests against the finance bill. You can use protests for events or things that you don't want at that particular time. But this issue of, let's remove the president, let's recall the president, let's do a referendum. Yes, okay, you will do it. You'll spend a lot of time on it. You might succeed, you might not succeed. If you succeed, another guy who behaves the same way as the past presidents will come on board. Are you going to keep on doing the same things all the time? The big problem we have is a generational issue. The people who, I would even say, ruled us, basically, have got totally different view in life. So if you want to bring a proper change, I think the best way to go about it is through the ballot. And the only way you can do that is if you start preparing now. What I can foresee, and a lot of things I've said basically which came to pass, is all this noise. You have this protest, you have the tear gas. The government is going to fight back. By the time you say, I'm going to remove a president from office, my friend, so many things will go bad. And even if you succeed, and for you to restart this country's economy and everything else, it will continue to hurt you. So the best way to approach this is to start early. Put some of this energy into mobilizing, organizing, go get the right candidates at every level, MCA, MPs, governors, the presidency, everywhere. And then you might not even get the presidency. You might not get anything. You might get 50 MPs, 20 MPs. It doesn't matter. That itself is a start. It's good start for change. If you succeed in changing, of course, the presidency, that's also fine. My worry is people are going to spend a lot of time about nothing, about wasting their time on how are we going. Ruto must go. We have to do this. We have to do this. Then you find out it's 2027, and then what happens?
Thank you, Mohammed.
People go to elections, and then you start again. So that's my 25 cents on this.
Thank you, Elie. Can I ask you the question? Number one, a referendum is a ballot as well. But also number two, can all those things happen simultaneously? One, for jurisprudence, just finding out whether if you have a presidency or a legislature that's not responding to the wishes of the people, how do the people exercise that power? And I see that one would be what would come out of this particular petition in court.
I think on my part, I lost Eric. I can see that he's talking, but I can't hear him.
Can the others hear me?
I can hear him correctly, Cyprian. I don't know.
Yes, I can hear you, Eric.
Okay, so Elia, you got my question. Just answer it briefly. Can these two processes happen simultaneously? Organizing for the next election, but at the same time going to court to set and understand the procedures and testing the Constitution on Article 1?
Yes, of course. Of course it will. But again, the more important one is, I think, the one I talked about. I think the court one, if it comes out successful, that's fine. But the other one cannot fail. I mean, if you don't do anything now, if you don't start a process to organize yourself, to belong to start, you need to form movements, political parties. You need to organize. You need to mobilize. You need to even fundraise. You need to do a lot of things to create, a real movement that can shake the country. I mean, if you go to the court one, that's fine. But again, our courts. There's some court cases going on for 10 years. People can appeal. It will go to, Court of Appeal, and then you go to the Supreme Court. By that time, it's, you find yourself 6 months to an election. Then you find out that you have nothing, that you have not done anything. Then the same people will basically go and do their tribal, emotions, and then you find another president, in office, and then you have to go to the streets again. You can't bring change. You can review, for example, things like the finance bill. You can do an event, event by event for protests, but you cannot. You can also protest maybe to bring change, to remove even a president from an office. But then, what are you going to achieve after that? What will happen if you don't have these systems, your processes in place? You are not ready yourself to go into to assume office, because what it looks like now is people want change, but they don't want to go in there themselves and do that change. It's very hard to teach, an old dog new tricks. So if you think as a Kenyan youth or a Gen Z that I am going to revolt every time, and these people who are 60 or 70 or 80 years old in office, and you're going to allow them to be in office, and you will change their behavior, you might remove one, you bring in another one, it's going to be the same. The best and most sustainable change is if the Gen Zs themselves plan now to take over power through the ballot.
Okay, point made. Thank you very much, Mohammed. I want to pick up other callers. I know we're already getting into those hours where many of the people who are on the show will start dropping off, going to sleep. So I'd like to have a lot of this conversation while they're still up. Gidi, you have been queued for quite a while. Now is your chance. Please speak. All right, Richard Kemoy.
Okay, thanks, Eric and Muthiora. Let me begin by appreciating and thanking Professor Migaya Cage, my teacher. I'd like to just, request you, Eric, to ensure that every speaker, sticks to the subject. I think we've been, deviating quite a bit. Now, if we're going to talk about this particular petition, we are looking and seeking for ways to exercise powers under Article 1. There are other provisions of exercising, universal suffrage. And that's why I'd like to disagree with Mohammed, because if that were the only option, then there would be no need for Article 1. Let me emphasize that, and I think Professor Ketch had said this, that I think the correct approach or the more beneficial approach is to seek to know from the courts how can the people exercise this power under Article 1, because we all agree there is no procedure, rather than asking the court to agree with you with the reasons and the facts and the evidence why we think the president and the deputy have lost legitimacy, so that we don't, using Professor Migai's approach, thinking that is a slippery road. Suppose they don't agree with you. So why don't we just leave it to the court to tell us how do we exercise this power? Okay, is it through a constituent assembly plus a referendum, or just another way? Thank you.
Thank you. Mudge Ralph.
Yeah, good evening. I hope I'm clear.
You are, go ahead.
Thank you. Yes, petition. What I understand at the moment is that, okay, if the courts would then give guidance to the unclear situation in Article 1, my assumption would be that it would take us back probably to a constitutional amendment. And for me, I think a constitutional amendment when there's a crisis is not a good idea. So my suggestion would be that we have a series, or we get to a position where we have a real single serious dictatorship in the country, and the dictatorship should be the current constitution, because we are not living up to it. The president comes up with the Defense Act and later goes to seek the approval. So how can we? Of course, we can test. We need to test the constitution and seek for guidance, but we're not going to get direct solutions. That is not going to happen with the amendment. But until we reach that point where we know what to do, I'd really like us to get ways of even having accountability, because the current government is doing so many things that are very unconstitutional. And so how do they get away with it? Because now today we are really together here and want to talk about improvement, but we see a lot of things they do. Mudavadi, his office is unconstitutional and so many things. So how do we have a scenario whereby any president knows they have to really just go by the only dictatorship that should dictate a country, and that's the constitution. Finally, I'd like to say that we have a very good constitution. As we see, it's airtight, almost airtight, because if you want to do it according to the articles where the National Assembly would then impeach the president and everything, you see that we have an orderly way. It's good that we have such an orderly way, because otherwise, the example I like to use is, if we have, for example, a war general coming over from wherever and they want to take over, we should be happy that our constitution doesn't allow that. So my point, let's try to have some accountability as we wait. But I'm also looking forward to see how that can be changed. Back to you, Eric.
Thank you, Maj. Thank you, Maj. And just to clarify that the petition before court is not seeking to amend the constitution. It is seeking for the court to declare that there is grounds and a procedure for going to a referendum to recall a president and a deputy president. So what the lawyers have told us, Kibe Mungai and lawyer Lempa, that they are seeking, plus the petitioners, the 14 of them, is they want the court to directly say that, you know, the people of Kenya can recall their president using Article 88, where the IEBC has the powers to conduct a referendum. Okay. I know, Prof, you've been wanting to speak for a bit, but so you can speak now, respond to a couple of the issues raised, Professor Ogola, and then we'll hear from Lucy Shege.
Yeah, so thank you very much, Eric and listeners. I think why it is critical that this petition is done, even if we forget about the issue of mobilization, like Gulay has said, is that if we do not defend this constitution, the raping, the maiming, and the destruction of this constitution will continue unchecked. And in fact, I wrote an article on the making of a one-party state. Even what has just happened this evening or afternoon, you might even find we go back to one-party state because the people said they fought for democracy. What they have done today shows that they have actually can reverse it overnight. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm happy with what Eric you said before, that we can actually do this simultaneously and they are not mutually exclusive. I don't want to go divert because I know Kenya Bora Tukatayo is also concerned about doing the same mobilization you're talking about. Cyprian can talk about this in the next subsequent activities. Maybe that's why it will be nice to talk more about KBT. But we're just focusing on this substantive matter. I'm sure that the declaration that we are waiting for today, I can celebrate there's a win already done because normally the judge is not forced to say that this matter will be heard like this. If he knew that there was crap inside this case, he could have just easily said that this is not admissible or this cannot happen. So for us, I'm happy. Let's celebrate what we have won today. First of all, to file this petition, it's taken a lot of effort. It's been filed. Secondly, it's been actually been allocated to a judge. Thirdly, that the judge has given direction, and then we are waiting for more direction. So as far as I'm concerned, the big step has been done, and
Okay.
the bigger step needs to be done as well.
Asante. Lucy? Lucy, you may unmute your mic. Nutritionist Lucy Shege. Not able to hear us? Okay, so we've been having Kitonye queued up to speak. Giddy Blackman, that's your Twitter name. Please speak now. Also not able to come in. All right, so there's some issues that have been raised by a previous speaker. In fact, who said, okay, do we really trust that this thing can go through the courts and that the system will not be manipulated in any way, that justice will be served as justice is desired to be served? I want to ask one of the petitioners, just a citizen, Janet, what do you feel here? Do you have the confidence? Do you feel that the issues being raised here are merited? Janet Modoni or any other of the petitioners, you can speak.
I can come in, Eric, if you can hear me. Can you?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you very much. I want to say that we have seen that on 25th of June, the people of Kenya focused on the executive and the judiciary and told them that they must do things the right way. On that day, they even went to the Supreme Court to send a message to the Supreme Court and the judiciary that hearing and listening to the people of Kenya who are the Supreme is very important. We are taking this matter to the court at a time when the court is being reminded that it is the ultimate guardian of our constitution. I want to say, let us not operate on the basis of fear or of doubt. The case that we have filed, as Wakili Kibe has said, is a very strong one. And the grounds are actually extremely imperious. So it is necessary that we do the public information and the civic mobilization as we prepare the country for the outcome, which is to defend the constitution and to actually ensure that the sovereignty of the people is enforced. I would say that it is now up to the judiciary to tell us on matters of law, what is it that we have not demonstrated that the constitution has been violated. And when we know that Article 165 requires that the High Court is the one which has to defend and interpret the constitution. We are extremely positive. We are very confident. And all the other issues that are being raised about 2027 are in order, and we can be able to do the same, the two of them simultaneously. Thank you very much.
Asante sana, Cyprian. One of the political questions that has, of course, been asked outside of this conversation, and I've got to bring it here, is on the organization, Kenya Bora Tuitakayo, out of the 14 petitioners. First, who is funding this petition? How are you financing it? Who's paying these wakilis? Kibe Mungai is a seasoned lawyer. Doesn't come cheap.
Can I speak to that directly?
Yes.
Yeah, let me speak to that very directly, because Kibe Mungai has just disclosed that he was our lawyer in the Njoya case for NCEC, and even before the Njoya case in 2004, which is now 20 years, he had been representing NCEC pro bono, having been working at, Dr. Gibson Kamau Kuria's farm, the likes of Professor Kivuda Kibwana, the likes of Justice William Otunga, who are actually the founders of NCC. These are lawyers who have given their lives to the work of ensuring that Kenya is established as a democracy. The second thing, and finally, is that Kenya Bora is a self-funding movement and a network of patriotic citizens of Kenya. We've continued to work directly to fundraise resources that are needed to achieve whatever convening, whatever work that is needed. And the fact that a lot of the 16 lawyers are actually pro bono lawyers, including Lempa, who is on this call, tells you that there's a remnant of many lawyers who did work even during the Mandamano, who are members of LSK, who offered to do this work pro bono and for free. We don't need anybody to fund us to defend the Constitution as we are required by Article 3 of the Constitution. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Cyprian. Wakili Kibe Mungai.
Eric?
Yes, hold on, Janet.
I wish to, yes. I wish to confirm that my colleague...
Kibe, there's something not okay with your phone.
I mean?
Yeah, if you're using an earpiece, yes, now it's better. Try.
Okay. So the point I was making is that I confirm that when you are, the call of patriotism requires every person where it is something where you have some speciality and capacity to serve your country to do that with or without pay. This particular initiative by the particular petitioners, they wanted a lawyer and a group of them who would lead in ensuring that the important connection and the question that kept on being asking, that Jay-Z are pushing the country into a crisis, and is that true or not? I confirm to the petitioners their beliefs that the Constitution of Kenya does indeed provide a procedure for the direct exercise of the sovereign power without any amendment whatsoever, because we already have IEBC, we've already had 2 previous referendum. Therefore, it is possible to do what we are doing. The question that was asked by a gentleman about the fact that they do not believe in the courts and their capacity to do justice, I think it may not be entirely fair to the courts for 2 reasons. Number one, with the fact that we have a referendum at all in Kenya, it has its genesis not in parliament, but in the court, the High Court in the Joya case. Number 2 is that we have a new constitution that ultimately is traceable to the courts. During this series of events, we have a situation whereby the Inspector General have tried to declare that maandamano are illegal. The court gave orders requiring that maandamano can go on. And there were also orders where the police were told you cannot use certain weapons, but unfortunately, they have not followed that. Therefore, it is my belief that we need to try the court. There is a lot of goodwill. I need to say that I know very many good judges, people like Judge Bajanja, who are my classmates. They are decent people and people who have been involved in the struggle for human rights and constitutionalism. Therefore, I have the full confidence that we have a good case, the High Court of the Republic of Kenya, that we have a referendum so that the serious question of legitimacy and incompetence and the violations of law that have been taking place can be addressed by the people of Kenya in a referendum, now that it is obvious. Parliament was captured a while back by Kenya Kwanza, and the situation is now likely to be worse, now that some people from ODM have decided to join Kenya Kwanza in making the situation worse. Therefore, I urge everybody to keep the faith. We have a constitution that is respected by lawyers, by all of us who are on this platform today, and I believe by the judges. Mbele iko sawa.
Respond to this issue, Kibe Mugai, that it has been raised by Professor Migai Akech, it has also been raised by Professor Kivuda Kibwana and others, I think. You are adamant that the procedure is provided for in the Constitution on people exercising their power directly. Then there's the other school of thought that maybe this procedure is not clear. Probably what you could do is also handle one prayer in the Supreme Court, constitutional interpretation is their procedure, as you're seeking the other route in the High Court. Does this make sense?
Yeah, the direct answer to that question, starting with the Supreme Court, the fact is that as an individual, as petitioners, you do not have a right to go for advice of your opinion in the Supreme Court. And therefore, for the petitioners who are my clients, cannot be able to exercise that right, go and seek that advice of opinion. It is a limited right. Number 2, and I believe we shall have a more technical forum to discuss this, is that this issue of referendum, a referendum law, as I said, in an ideal situation, we should have a referendum law. But a referendum law would be a law that is based on the recognition that the Constitution has provided for it. Let us give an example. The right under Article, I believe, 37 of the protest and picketing, there is no law that provides for it. But we have been going to do the maandamano based directly on the Constitution. Therefore, the apprehension that there is no procedure would not be correct, because we have IEBC, and it is the responsibility of IEBC to conduct referendum. And we have already held 2. So the anxiety that is there, I insist, has got no basis, provided there is a law saying who is supposed to conduct referendum, and the substantive right exists in Article 1. And I believe all those colleagues you have mentioned are friends of mine. We should have hope one of these days, and I will allay their fears.
Okay.
There is no gap whatsoever.
Thank you. Thank you, Kibe Mungai. So, Prof. Migai and Kibwana, chai has been offered. Now, Janet, you have a hand up, and then we'll hear from Mugambi. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like us to conclude this conversation shortly. So these are like final submissions, and then we'll come back to the petitioners, and Wakili Lempa will close for us. Janet?
Thank you very, very much, Eric. And I really want us to learn a lot from what the Gen Zs have taught us. And I pick from them 3 principles. And one of them is the principle of volunteerism. Having been a player in the political sector, if we do not insist on volunteerism and insist that to take part in everything, there has to involve money, a lot of things would not have been possible if there was all that money involved in the organization of the Gen Zs. And that is why you're seeing, the ruling class wondering who is funding the Gen Zs. But I am aware a lot of them were funding their own activities. A lot of them were just volunteering to do a lot of things. And we need to be challenged by that. And people need to believe that even in processes like these ones, there are lawyers that act pro bono, there are lawyers that are, and other professionals that are willing to do anything, for free, to just volunteer their expertise for the sake of the cause. The other thing is about us demanding thorough accountability, like we have learned with the Gen Zs, without making excuses. That our courts are ABCD. So what do we do? Do we die? Do we stop trying? Do we stop challenging? Do we stop expecting more? What do we do? And the third one is about patriotism. The belief, and the want for a better country, without so much looking at the gain that we have towards that end. Because a lot of these expectations are what has bred the political situation that we have, that for anybody, and that's why people are not even believing that when we say that there can be new organizations, people are wondering, where would you get crazy monies? Because people believe that for you to be a president or to vie as a president in this country, you must have billions and billions of money. I put you to test. Even if you have served for 10 years as a member of parliament, how would you be able to accumulate 2 billion unless you have stolen? We know the salaries that they earn and the expectations that they have from people. So I think also some of these processes are part of educating citizens that we are part of this mess, we are part of this problem, unless we are thoroughly patriotic, unless we demand total accountability, unless we are ready to embrace volunteerism, we are not going to change this country, Eric. So for me, I really believe that even if this process we are engaged in might not yield, our expectation, I know it will achieve a lot in terms of telling and shaking the political class to know, hey, the 5-year mandate is not guaranteed. There is something that citizens of this country must do. And therefore, I totally believe that it is not an exercise in futility. It is an exercise that as citizens of this country, we must rally behind so that we get the impact that we desire. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you very much, Janet. Mugambi, you want to contribute? Mugambi Nandi.
Thank you very much, Eric, and everybody else on the platform. I'll begin by first saluting fallen comrades who have given their blood, their lives, so that we may have a better Kenya. And then I'll go straight to my contribution today, and I think that it is necessary to get an opinion or a declaration from the High Court, since Kibe says we cannot go to the Supreme Court, regarding the exercise of the power given in Article 1 and 2. And I am thinking, looking at Article 255 and 256, the Constitution actually envisages 2 types of referenda. If you look at Article 1 or Article 255, 1 and 2, which is about amendments which include the term of the office of president, that particular referendum is distinguished from the referendum envisaged in Article 255.3, which is the one that goes through the county assemblies. So I think, most of you might already know, I'm not a constitutional litigation lawyer, but I'm throwing this out for us to think about, and specifically to my friend Kibe and others, to think about looking at the distinction between the referendum as stated in Article 255(1) and 2, and the referendum that goes through the county assemblies in Article 255 sub-Article 3. The next thing I would like to say is that while I agree with Welie that it is important for Gen Zs to have structures and things like that, I don't think it is priority at the moment, because it is possible to elect sound people into public office as independent candidates, or even as members of existing political parties. What I think is probably more important is to push for certain important amendments to the Constitution before the next election, whether it's 2027 or before, because one of the things Gen Zs have complained about, and I agree with them, is the cost of government, the size of government. If we agree that we are overrepresented, that we have 400 MPs and we have 2,000 plus MCAs, and a lot of them are nominated, and we want to reduce that number, the best way is to reduce that number before the next election, so that that amendment takes effect with effect from the next election. And so I would say that that is probably something that we